Welcome back to the One Line Away podcast. I am your co-host, Tyler Weber.
And this is Cassie Weber.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how infertility affects mental health.
When you are going through infertility, mental health is so complicated. I wish that there was more recognition of how serious infertility is and how that affects your mental state and your mental health as a whole. It affects all areas of your life. And that's not just yourself. That's not just people. That's not just your environment. It's all consuming.
All of our episodes throughout this podcast are going to be intertwined, meaning that every single episode has a designated topic that we're going to be talking about. But within that topic, we're going to be bringing up other topics that we're going to discuss.
Yeah, I think it's hard to separate these episodes perfectly because it all aligns with itself.
These things are always something that you're going to be dealing with during infertility, and we want to make you feel okay, like this is a topic that they keep talking about for a reason.
Yeah. Before we go into each of these topics, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge what has happened so far from us announcing the podcast to every episode, the feedback, the messages, the conversations. I feel so honored to sit here with Tyler, and I feel already, we're only 3 episodes in, and I already feel like what we are doing has been worth it.
Has a bigger purpose.
It has awoken Tyler and I in ways that I wish I could even begin to tell each one of you who have reached out. And I've tried my best, but ultimately, this is why we're doing this. And even though maybe I was filled with fear or I was unsure of where this would go, there's so much to come.
Mm-hmm.
And already I feel like our lives have changed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Like we're sitting in the same spot that we've been sitting in this walk that we're on for years. And this is the first time in these almost 4 years where I have felt like it's mattered. It's more than I ever thought it would be.
Every time you have thought about infertility in the past, it's
so
been
sour.
That dark cloud. It's been sour. You don't want to think about it.
No.
Now every time I think about it, I'm like, ooh, podcast.
Well, you're driven.
It just gives me more fuel for this podcast train that we're on right now.
How has infertility affected our mental health?
That's such a loaded question. Oh, man. My mental health during this 4 years that we've been going through this, or 3.5 years, has definitely been a wave.
Yeah.
There's been moments where it's complete darkness. There's been moments where it's complete sadness, where I just don't want to deal with anything. I don't want to talk to anyone. There's moments where you're like, okay, I'm fine. I can do today. And then it could be just crushed. That wave could break right on you and you're just like, I can't breathe. I just get lonely in times. Like there's moments of frustration of, again, why me? Why us? Why the heck are we going through this? Why is it every single time that every month that we go in to see if you get your period that you do? The last thing is just confusion.
How infertility has affected my mental health has been excruciating. Anxiety is, it's crippling. Anxiety, being already someone who deals with anxiety, when you take your anxiety and you move it into going through infertility, it is crippling. I have suffered with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, grief, complete sadness, overwhelming emotions. The list goes on. Every emotion that you can feel that is not good I feel like I have been slapped in the face with. I think certain mental health concerns have come on at different points. They've come on at different strengths. And that is why it is so serious. It's not that I want to separate, like infertility doesn't always mean that you've experienced loss. Though that walk is very different, it's equally important. I have been open with certain people about my mental health, and there's something that only certain people are aware of in the walk of our or in our journey. It's so hard being in this current state of mind because a part of me kind of has forgotten who I was before going through infertility. I genuinely was a happy, healthy, mentally healthy and sound person. I did struggle with anxiety. I have struggled with anxiety from a pretty young age, and that's something that has been very situational in my life. But I didn't know how dark my mind could go, and I still struggle to this day to even take myself back to the moment that I feared for my life. It got to the point in our journey where I felt like I was stripped to absolutely nothing, and I really allowed that darkness to swallow me. I remember telling you, I don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And I think in that moment, I was so scared of myself. And I think that I think you were scared. Like, I feel like you looked at me and were like, mad. Like, do not say that. And like, I can't believe you're talking like that. Do not talk like that. And I just never thought I was capable of having that problem. And I mean, I had just allowed that evil to take over. And having to dig myself back out of that hole was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's still scary because I know how I could get myself back to that point, and I never want to get back to that point. But for me, I had to want to live again in order to, like, I had to want life enough to want to live it again. If I could say beyond you, the person that has walked this walk with me the most intimately would be my sister. And she is one that I don't know if it's just because it's my sister or if it's just her heart, but she has been one who has had to, one, love me unconditionally, but also discipline me and say the things that I don't want to hear, though they always have been the right thing. She has had to like put that hard foot forward. I think her knowing certain intimate details of what we've gone through, one, it's sad. I never, it's like you never want someone to know how dark your heart has become, but she probably has been part of why my life has been saved. It's so hard to actually try to get someone to understand this, but I have gone through so many moments and seasons in our journey where I feel everything and nothing at the same time. I don't know how that works. I don't know how that's possible, but you can have an overwhelming amount of numbness that you feel every bit of it at the
Numbness.
same time.
Numbness is the best word you could have
Yeah,
ever said.
I feel like you might be listening to this and you've dealt with similar feelings, emotions, or seasons, and getting out of them, or at least mending enough to keep pushing forward in whatever way that looks is a different strength. It takes more than what I think any of us feel like is capable of happening. Like you feel like when you hit capacity in one issue, right? If it's, you've been trying for cycle after cycle after cycle, and then maybe, okay, you've had a miscarriage and then you've gone straight into treatment, or, there's so many different scenarios. But I think in all ways, there's points in your journey, and this is definitely what's been true for us, where you'll burn out or you'll hit capacity in certain areas of your struggles. And when one of those falls, it like feels like the rest of it falls at the same time. And so there has been things along the way that I think have helped. And
it's like one stick is holding everything up.
It's like Jenga.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And it's one thing is holding all the marbles up, and then once it's pulled, it's like all the marbles fall.
Yeah, it crashes.
Yeah. Because it could just be one simple little thing. Like you could go a week, or a week's aggressive. You could go like a day or two and feel fantastic and be fine. And then it could just be one tiny thing you see on Facebook or whatever it is.
Someone says.
Or what someone says, or someone asks you, or something like that. And it's like
falls apart.
The rest of your day, tomorrow's screwed. You're like, it's so sad. We laugh about it because we know it's true, because we've had moments.
It's so sad that you have to laugh at it, or else you can't get through it.
Or else then my day's gonna be ruined for the next day and a half.
Yeah. Clearly there's no way to navigate mental health perfectly. Mental health is a lot of people's biggest fight in their life. It may be related to infertility or not. There is so much trauma that you experience in your life. The fact that you're still standing, even when you feel like you can't, couldn't, or maybe the next thing you feel like you just can't take one more thing, you deserve so much praise.
Mm-hmm. Like it's that wave. You don't know the size of the wave.
Yeah.
You don't know if that thing's 3 feet or 400 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's weird to sit here and think, okay, my last mental breakdown was this time, and I remember it hasn't been that long ago. And it took my sister saying, look, there is similar behavior coming out like what we've dealt with before. And if that means you need to do XYZ or XYZ, the time is now. And again, that goes with like truly having the right people in your life. And you, like, it is so crucial to have the right people in your life. And if you don't have that, let it be us. Like seriously, like let it be us, because I take this whole topic, I take more serious than I think I even can like say.
And we are well aware that people that are listening to this podcast may or may not believe. But one thing that has definitely taken an impact on me is my distance from God. There's still moments where I get mad at him. But I think specifically the last few months, the break has helped me getting back onto the same page with him and making, I guess, my mind at ease has been a huge part in my healing. Obviously, this podcast, we've talked about it a little bit. This podcast has really given me a purpose, given me a reason to talk about it, whether it is the light or the dark of this topic. But there's been a lot of frustrations that I've had with him, with God himself, just during this whole thing, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier of the why. Why us? Right before we dropped our first episode, where you hear all the time, and I don't know if you're going to go into it, but we hear all the time, like, God's timing. And the big thing for me was maybe this is part of his plan, and this was a part of his timing, that he wanted us to be able to make this podcast and reach out to people and say, like, we're here to help you. We're here for an outlet. And maybe he wanted us to be an outlet for people and be an outlet for couples that are going through this dark time. I've gotten a little bit, I would say, not necessarily on my toes ready to attack, but I've gotten back on my heels and kind of let this moment come to me. And maybe we are maybe we are going through this and we have been
It's
going
for
through
something
this.
bigger.
It's for something bigger. And
Yeah.
I think that is just, for my mental health, has just been huge. I have it in all caps at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
This gave me a purpose. We've had hundreds of moments where we have no idea what's next.
Yeah.
We've had hundreds of moments that we probably will be going into that we don't know what's next.
Yeah.
Right now, we know that this is next for us. We love every minute of being able to do this.
No matter where you are in your belief system, if you're a believer or not, it's important to us that you feel like you have a place here. There will be things that we talk about that does revolve around our faith, and that's just part of our walk. And that part, I would love to dive deeper into. We just want it to be at the right time. Finding relief, help, however you want to word it. It is so important to take care of yourself. And I know that's a very blanket statement, but I wanted to maybe bounce a few ideas off for if you're listening to this, if you've been looking for or trying to find something that brings you a little bit of peace. Has been things throughout the journey that have allowed me to keep going. Self-care can look like many different things. It can be, for me, getting my nose stuck into a book or listening to certain music. Sometimes it's really happy music or really sad music.
I would say for me, it was a lot of different music that I wasn't normally listening to. Golf at times, like video games. Coaching has been a big one for me. Coaching hockey is kind of like a great escape for me, just because hockey's always been there since I was 5. So that's been a huge blessing.
The topic of treatment is very sensitive, and medication or medicating can look very different based on your opinion on the matter. I have, throughout this journey, attacked it in a more natural approach, and something that I have gotten so much out of was seeing a fertility acupuncture doctor, a fertility specialist, if you will. That has been, to this day, one of the most important parts of getting through this. And there's been times where I've had to take more, take less. But for me, being medicated, if you need to hear this, there is no shame. Like, you are not to carry any shame in needing help. And if that's antidepressants, anxiety medication, herbs, vitamins, however that looks that you're comfortable with. And when I say you, like, I don't want us to put anything in your ear or anyone in your life to tell you how to do that. But I just, like, please hear me when I say, if you feel like you need something that will get you through, it is okay to do that. Therapy is something that, again, is very personal. I definitely think that we could benefit more from therapy, but that's been something that has been part of our journey that we've still been discovering. Music, to me, is something very important to talk about. There is times where I want to sit in my sadness and listen to those sad songs that really speak to your heart, and you just want to cry and you cry all the way home. Like, that music is very healing sometimes. And then there's times where I need to listen to metal and rock on, let's go. And then there's some artists that Tyler and I both equally share so much thanks to.
Shout out Lainey.
Lainey. I would love to put together a playlist for everyone on Spotify. I think that would be so awesome. And I've thought about this, and I would love to create playlists for music that hits when you're going through infertility. How has going through infertility affected my mental health with people?
In a lot of situations, it feels like there's a neon light around us. In many moments, whether that's we're at a gender reveal, or we're at a baby shower, or we're just hanging out with people in a living room. There's been a lot of moments where it feels like there's tension in the room, or there's an elephant in the room, and we haven't said it. we haven't made any comments. We haven't made
Mm-hmm.
anything. It just feels like at any drop of the hat, pulling that stick, marbles could be rolling out.
The damage that can be caused to a couple going through infertility who don't, for those who do not take our mental health or your mental health seriously, or your mental state, your current mental state seriously, the damage that it can do to one, your relationship, but two, what happens when we have to go home and sit with certain situations that happen, or that you deal with those people. That is where awareness and education come into play. There is so many times where we have felt that certain people in our life have put their feelings and their expectation and their conditions in front of us. I don't know how maybe you feel listening to this, but I think something that is so hard for me is I wish I could portray, and maybe again, like I don't know how I would have felt years, like a few years ago, but like I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to feel this. I wish I could look at someone's pregnancy announcement, or I wish I could face certain events or conversations like I did before going through this. And I can't. Like, once you go into this world, obviously you didn't choose this. And it's so hard because I'm mentally going through the strain of like, I never wanted this. I don't want to be this burden to you. I don't want you to feel like you have to tiptoe around me. I don't want this. I like right now in today's time, like right now, I hate that I have these emotions. I hate that I feel this way. And it's just suffocating. Like I don't want to feel this way anymore, but yet I'm met with I have to figure out how to cope with this every single day. Every single day I have to choose to put people in front of me, and I don't, and I'm sorry to say it in that way, but like it's a choice, and I have to choose whether or not I choose me or choose you, whatever, whoever that is. And a lot of times I'm choosing others. Like I feel like in this entire journey so far, like so many times, and for this is very personal for us, but like we have always chosen others in front of our mental health.
Yeah.
And I think that that's made certain situations worse. Like people don't know that we've gone home
But
crying, or gone home and fought, or felt completely alone and forgotten. And look, I understand, and I'm sorry to not let you talk yet, but like I understand that we we are just as confusing on the other end of it. Like someone looking in, trying to navigate how to work with having a relationship with us while we're going through, the fight of our life. I understand that that is so difficult to process, especially one, if you don't know how to relate, or you don't know what to say because you don't want to trigger me, but yet maybe in turn it triggers me because, then secrets occur or tiptoeing around us occurs. Like there's effects that happen that maybe both parties didn't want it to get to. And hopefully the relationship's important enough and healthy enough to work through that division. But a lot of times it hasn't. In our walk, there has been many times that there's never been an opportunity to work through it because you just can't meet in the middle, or there's too much pride, or there's maybe not enough unconditional love for it to work or to work out. There was a time in our journey where someone said, I don't know who you are anymore. And I remember feeling in that moment like just pure pain. Unfortunately, when you get into certain, like at this point in time when this occurred, I was in a very, very hard place. And I didn't know who I was either. There's something I like to call the glaze over effect. There's been so many times where I've tried to talk and it feels like that person wants to hear me. And then I start talking or I start opening up a little bit more. It's like I crack the can open and that person, it's like you literally can see it. It's like they look at you and they start glazing over. And it's that disconnect of like, I have no clue what you're saying. Maybe it's the acronyms I'm using or the terms that are, not normal terms or whatever it is, or something that they haven't walked to and cannot relate to. But that's something that I've been still learning is who you can talk to and not talk to and what you can talk about. And that glaze over it's just kind of hurtful,
Especially from a guy's perspective.
Yeah.
I would say from a female's perspective, it's a majority of females know what infertility is. They understand the concept behind it. They may not know to the depths that each person's in,
Yeah.
but from a guy's perspective, there's like a 1 out of 100 chance that they know
Anything.
even what infertility is. Examples. You say, yeah, we don't have kids. Or you get asked, hey, do you have kids? No, we're going through infertility. Oh, well, your swimmers don't swim? That's a huge comment I get all the time. Oh, is it you? Is it her? And they ask, from a guy's perspective, they may not think like this is a real thing, but it's from being in it, you don't just want to sit there and go into it and be like, this is what we've done. This is everything we've been through 3.5 years, because the glaze over effect is real. They would be like, what?
They check out.
Oh, they checked out. They'll check out the moment you say, oh, we've been going through it for 3.5 years. They're like, that's a long time. But they don't even understand to the full potential what that means, what that has entailed. The car rides that we fight after we go hang out with, people in our lives, or the being at those events and trying to deal with it, or just the moments of everyday life that we go through, and all the reminders that we don't have kids yet, and all the reminders that we're still going through this. There's a lot of things that it's frustrating. I've even had moments recently where stuff will get brought up about the infertility, and instead of I'll do the fake laugh with it, and then I'll just shut down.
Yeah.
Because it's, in my opinion, if they want to know what I've been going through, or what we've been going through, they'll ask questions, not the dumb, I'm a guy, I'm going to act dumb in this situation and try to get out of it questions. They'll ask. And I've had people that do that, right? Yeah. They ask, like, what is an ectopic pregnancy, or what is this, and like, what is your podcast about? And you tell them, and they'll be like, oh, like, well, we've gone through this, or or the people that honestly have no idea what infertility is about. There is people that will still ask you questions and not just try to make a dumb joke out of it. Yeah. And there's, in the moments where the dumb jokes happen, I check out. I wouldn't even say check out. I just shut down.
Yeah.
Right. I'll be in a truck or doing something, and I'll just change the topic.
Yeah.
Instantly.
I think I definitely have an observation now that I've seen very clearly. I see it clearly now. And my observation is this. It's people have to care enough to hear, to listen, to try to put themselves in your shoes. And some people are incapable of doing that. Like, it's just the truth. Like, there has been, I'll use one example of someone that we know that's older than us. They're in a totally different phase of life. And we've met with, like, had dinner with them and gone over so much of our story because they wanted to hear our hearts. Like, it was so important to these people to hear our heart. and just sit with you in it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there's been people in our life who they lack, in my opinion.
To go back, sorry. Those people that we went over there for dinner, they may not know the right questions to ask,
Yeah.
but they listen well enough to know they listen well enough to ask questions that still shows that they're engaged. That still shows that they want to learn more about this. They want to understand where we're coming from, not just, oh, I'm just doing this just to feel like a good person.
Yeah.
Right? They were there, they were dialed in, they were making sure that they knew where our heart was and they wanted to feel that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to look back at some of the conversations that we've had with different people, and it just goes back to, I think, again, like knowing our hearts and almost just like caring enough. We can't force anyone to care enough,
No.
right? Like, I think that's an unrealistic thing to expect. And I think the expectations thing, it does very much so go both ways. And no one, and I don't feel like anyone would say that they've navigated that perfectly. And I feel like what we have to say in our journey is so important. Like, we deserve to be taken seriously. Maybe someone will listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, like I've never like said anything, and I feel really terrible for that. But we also have a very close couple in our life that, gosh, they have been such a huge light in our life, and they have no clue. They've not walked the walk that we've walked in any way, shape, or form, but they were the first ones, or the first like friends that we talked to about this podcast. And they were so engaged, and they had so many like ideas and tips and observations and recommendations.
Yep.
And they're like, it's like true in their heart. Like you can feel the love that they have for us. Like you felt it. They cared. They know how much it's affected us, even if they haven't walked the walk from start to finish with us. Like, that to me is so incredible to have. I feel like it's such an honor to get to call them our friends, because it feels like it's like we've received more from them than certain family in our lives.
One thing that I really want to emphasize, and I've been asked multiple times, like, how do I help you? And one thing that I kind of just came up with it, which is fantastic, just listening to you speak, is don't disregard my feelings, or don't like try to change the subject or try to bring up something from, oh, you have kids, like, oh, this is what don't try to disregard my feelings because you aren't educated in what I'm going through. Because you aren't educated enough. Try to understand. Those people that we had dinner with, or our friends that you're talking about, they don't know everything about what we've gone through. They don't know every single detail. They don't know every little thing that we've gone through. But all they do is they just try to understand, right? You're not going to fix what we're going through. There's not one thing that you can say or one thing that you can do that's going to make it, boom, we have a baby right in front of us, right? That's the end all be all of this. But there is one thing that you can do, and it's try to put yourself in our shoes and try to be on our level of, okay, what have they gone through? Why do they hate getting on Facebook and seeing this stuff? Or why do they have any hesitancy to go to a gender reveal or to go to a baby shower? Like, understanding what we're going through is 95% of the battle.
Yep. I keep going back to on this topic with mental, like having people in your life meet with you where you are in your mental state that you're currently in is so important. And it really does set up like a healthy relationship with them. And there's been times where we've been told that we're hard to approach, or that they don't know what to say to us because they don't want to like make us upset, or there's been things like that that have actually been verbalized to us and from different people. And again, it's like how they've approached it. I think your approach is one of the biggest things, and it's so hard. And I feel like I hate to be like hounding on these things, though equally important, but like I get that like when like sometimes your intention really isn't that. But I think that we've been able to really truly see that if someone has really good intentions, that we can like kind of like graze or like get through that, maybe if it's been approached in not the best way. Just I feel for people in our life who have, I know, struggled to approach us or talk to us about things, and or I never wanted to be this hard to communicate with. And certain relationships that have dwindled or at times been in times where they've been rocky, it's not always been personal. It's hard not to project your pain onto others, and that's something, again, that's just like you just can't do it perfectly. And how was our mental health while going through infertility affected certain surroundings, situations, and environments? These alone are more of the uncontrollable side of going through the motions of walking infertility
in everyday life.
Yeah. We can't avoid certain situations at all times. In the years that we've been going through infertility, we have both worked in different work settings. All have had certain situations that have greatly affected our mental health and mental state. I was on bed rest from one of our transfers, and
the next
day after our transfer, something very serious occurred very abruptly and unfairly in his job. And to this day that changed
kind of played my hand for me.
Yeah.
In a situation that caused me to do something that I never thought I would do.
Yeah.
So it was, and then it was the emotions within us was just flip-flopped. It went from we're doing a transfer to
yep, I'm finding a new job.
I gotta find a new job. I gotta
make some huge changes.
Life career changes.
I think going through that when we did at such a terrible time, a very uncontrollable time, it shows that your journey as you're walking and navigating through infertility, the outside world doesn't wait up for you. It doesn't pause. It's not sensitive to you. And that's a very hard truth that is so unfortunate when you mix your livelihood and going through infertility, and you're already going through it mentally. That combined was, honestly, I can't believe we got through it. Like, it felt like in that time that we weren't going to make it out alive. Like, it really felt like a very serious shift in our entire life. And those things unfortunately happen. It's not okay. It's not right. I'm not trying to tell anyone that like life's really hard, suck it up, because that's a huge trigger for me, and we're not even going to get into that. But
the hands were going.
But stability is so important while going through infertility. And when that was shaken, that was a moment in our journey that I'll never forget.
That's crazy that you bring that up, because I guess I never really put my timing of depression and going into that with that moment. And it is kind of where it all started. It is, because it was going to a new company, which I'm grateful for, love it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But it was going to a new company and starting at the bottom and having to build myself up. And that moment, I mean, just like you said, the stability of all these transfers and everything that we were doing, to doing a transfer and then the next day having to make a decision, which it wasn't really a decision. It was just something that had to do.
You do your best to trust that you are doing the right thing by sharing with the right people. And sometimes you make mistakes. Like, honestly, like sometimes you make a mistake and it is what it is. But uh, unfortunately, we're in that era or in that season where it's constant conversation of, are you having kids? Why don't you have kids? What's wrong with you? Some days you have good days and can walk through it and get yourself to work through that. And then there's days where you just feel like you get home and you were hit by a bus and you cry all the way home and you just hope that the next day is an okay day.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
lot of the time, my work has been my escape from
totally.
it
You're new.
because
Yeah.
it's, yeah, I go to my job, I go there, I do it, have a couple guys to hang out with, and
Work
kind of,
really hard and
yeah, you work hard, and I'm learning stuff all the time, which is fantastic. So it's been really good. But there's been a lot of moments where I coach, and like during coaching, people will ask like, "Do you have a kid?" And it's like, "No." Well, why not? We don't have time. I gotta go coach.
I've had that
There's
same.
moments where you're like, I don't feel like getting into this.
Yep. I
I don't have the energy, and I can promise you, you don't have the attention span to deal with exactly what I'm going to bring up to you.
Yeah.
So I get that a lot, and a lot of people. It's later in the season now, so I think some people know, and some
Mm-hmm.
people know you. So it has been brought up nearly as much in the latter months.
It's funny that you brought up hockey because though it's become such an amazing outlet for both you and I remember one of the first games, someone came up to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, which one's your kid?" And I was like internally crying, dying inside, but externally I was like, I'm just a coach's wife, you know.
You're
Um,
like the coach.
literally,
He's my kid.
literally. So it's like there is like things that you can find light with, even though it stings. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's fun. It's
Mhm.
funny. Um, and again, it's like you can't control your surroundings all the time. There's things that you definitely want to protect yourself if you're going into events or situations or environments or surroundings. Like you want to make sure that one, if you're going into it by choice, that you're okay to be going through that or doing that thing. But I think it's the uncontrollable part that's hard, and you navigate it differently. And there's different things that you can do.
I remember when we first started going through the infertility journey, and we would go to gender reveals or baby showers or something, and I just I never had that doubt at that time.
Mm,
Right? We would go there, and I'd be like, "Oh, I know I'm gonna get this."
right.
But as of like later, I'm not saying I have doubt, but you have that.
Stings more.
Yeah, it stings more. You're like, man, I still don't have this. Like I've
Mm.
been wanting this
Like
for
going
a
to a
long
first
time.
birthday party and then a second birthday party and then
Yeah.
a third and then a fourth, and you're
Uh-huh.
like, I am still in the same place.
Yep. I'm still like life has gone on, and geez, I feel like we say that all the time now too.
Mm-hmm.
But like life has gone on for everyone around us. Now it's just like every single time I bring up the Mike Tyson, but I'm gonna bring the wave up into this one. Like it's just another wave, and I feel like the wave just gets taller. Right?
Bigger.
It's turning into a freaking tsunami. It used to just be like this. Now it's like, oh no,
Mm-hmm.
nothing's coming down.
I think that's what's so hard, and I still don't know the answers or how to really like
Cope with it.
cope with that. Is like it just gets harder as time goes on, and I think that's when it becomes so apparent to people that, like, how do I word it? I think as time goes on and as it gets harder, it's that's when it's even more important to pick and choose what you can handle. And I feel like by now, like now I can see things a little bit more clearly of what is healthy and not healthy for me at that time. You have to protect yourself even more than we have before, which I think makes it harder from the outside perspective of, well, you did just fine 2 years
At this
ago.
one, yep.
Whereas now it's like you feel like you have to reason with it more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I kind of remember what I was going to say that one time, because it's going off that with, yes, oh, you were fine 2 years ago. Well, now we got to really take care of ourselves. We really have to sit there and make decisions on our feelings and not trying to please everyone else.
Yeah,
right?
Those situations are...
And it's difficult because we've made decisions where we decided to go to something and
now all of a sudden we don't.
Now all of a sudden we don't, and we just get bombarded by it.
We get
pushback for it, but they, like you said, they don't see the car ride home. They don't see when we get home and we don't turn on any lights and we just sit there and it's like there's a huge clash between you and I, but
they don't know the detriment
everyone else is happy.
It can cause. Yep. And that goes back to putting your mental health before anyone else. And we have done, I would say, if we've done anything, what we've done the most poorly is not setting these boundaries from the beginning.
Well, you don't freaking know what boundaries.
Yeah.
You set it.
So
that's the hardest part. You don't think this is going to last 3.5 years. You're like, oh, it'll be good next cycle. But it's not. Like, I mean, at this point, it's
literally
we just roll with the punches at this point.
But I think
it's you don't set up boundaries because you don't think boundaries need to be in place.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us for someone who may be joining this podcast. Like if you're joining this podcast and you just had an ectopic or you just had something where you're like, maybe I'm going down this road of infertility. We're not telling you, hey, set these boundaries right now. But we're also telling you like to help your mind, to help the stress of everything that you hear us talk about. Maybe it'd be good to.
Yeah. I think it's unfair for people to not take you seriously from the beginning. Right? Like,
in what sense,
if you've only had, you've just been struggling to get pregnant, or, oh my gosh, they've had like 12 miscarriages. Okay, now they're important. It's like, there should be no condition with that of how hard your journey's been. It should start unconditionally from the start. Period. I just don't think that any of this journey is to be taken lightly.
Or alone.
Yeah. And because of that, that's why this episode, it's, I would say, our hardest one so far that we've tried to attack. Yep. And I hope we've done it well, and we've done it in a way that, this community can be proud of what we're trying to do with this episode.
Yeah, we just want to reiterate that if you're going through this and you're looking for an outlet and you don't have an outlet, or you can't think of one, or you can't come up with one, reach out to us. Like we're not perfect in this journey, but one thing we do know is that we want to help people go through this journey, because what we've felt has just been a nightmare. And we want to make sure that we can help you in any way that we can.
Something so beautiful about this community is the people that are walking the walk right now. I feel like I've gotten the most out of conversations with people that are right where we are, or at least have walked kind of where we have been. And they just know what the right things are to say. And that part feels like, what a good thing that we at least have in this community is a way to, put that weight onto one another without it feeling too heavy to bear. Right. And so I definitely feel like I have gotten so much out of people in my life that I've had and grown relationships with who have been walking this journey or have walked deep in this journey. And we definitely want to be that for someone.
Definitely.
And I definitely feel like I have that. And it's an honor. It truly is.
Mm-hmm. It is. We want to just reach as many people as we can. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. We love you.
See you guys next week.